Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's online class with a brief introduction and skills discussion of capnography. This is going to be just a short presentation that will go through some of the background information about what capnography is and how to use it as far as these skills are concerned. We will follow this up at a later time with an in-person skills lab. Today is simply going to be the online class introduction. If you look on the lesson plan that is provided on your Moodle course, there should be some additional resources in regards to the handouts that we're going to be using today, as well as a lesson plan. But for now, we're going to just go through the content, and I'll start with a brief introduction. So my name is Caleb Byer, and I am a lieutenant with Greenville Fire Rescue here in Greenville, North Carolina. Been with the fire department for about 10 years now, and throughout that time, I've been both a firefighter and in EMS at some capacity. Been a paramedic for about the last 5 years and have gotten into teaching in that time frame and love it. Had the opportunity to do so at a few different community colleges and have the pleasure of being with you guys today. So it's a little bit about me. And as we move on, I'm going to ask you to complete this short icebreaker activity. I like to call this favorite EMS medication. So to start off with, each of you, if you want to grab a sheet of paper on your desk or use your notes or Microsoft Office on your computer, just write down one medication that you enjoy and its correct dosage on your sheet of paper or on your computer or phone, and be prepared to discuss it. What we'll do here in a minute is have each of you unmute your mics one at a time and discuss the medication, why it is that you find it interesting, when you've had opportunities to use it in the past, and what the proper dosage is. And in addition to that, it'll give you opportunities to simply introduce yourself. So along with the medication, you can give us your name and a little bit about your background. So I'll give you a minute to do that, and then we'll go ahead and go through that exercise. All right, so to follow up the exercise with the introduction, the icebreaker, I'm going to do a quick knowledge quiz just to test a little bit about what you know about capnography before we even get started. Some of you may have never heard of it before. Some of you have potentially been exposed to it and may be experts on it. So we're kind of gauging different levels of knowledge here. No embarrassment one way or the other. Just simply take a minute and take a look at these questions that we have here, which are also available on your Moodle platform as a handout. And just jot down a few answers to each of these questions that you can be prepared to share with the class. And we'll just get an idea where everybody stands. All right, so those two exercises behind us, let's get into the overview. So here's a brief overview of the lesson plan for today, what we're hoping to accomplish. We're going to be looking at a brief definition of capnography with some introduction to what it is. We'll look at some of the key terms that we use when referring to capnography. We'll talk about 3 different types of capnography, different types and different uses. And then finally, we're going to discuss and have a image to help us see the step-by-step capnography procedures. Logistically, with our online class, that's about the best we're going to do today. But as far as an actual skills demonstration, we'll get into a little bit more depth, like I said, when we have the opportunity to do the skills lab. So first off, I'll ask somebody to give some feedback. And you can open your mic and let us know if you have the knowledge of what capnography is, and feel free to share it with us. Barring anybody stepping up and doing that, we'll go ahead and just proceed and go with the definition here on the slide. So capnography is a monitoring tool that is used to measure the amount of expired carbon dioxide in a patient's breathing. So it's a very handy assessment tool or diagnostic tool that we can utilize with our EMS patients to help give us more information on top of our standard vitals that we use. Here's an example of the waveform or image that you would see on your screen. And the importance of learning about capnography is to interpret the waveform that you see. So this is what we would expect to be as normal. When we have opportunities to get a little bit more in depth into capnography, you'll start to learn some of the abnormal presentations and waveforms and what information you can glean from them. So a few reasons why capnography is important for us, a couple of things that it can measure. You'll see three things on your screen there. One is ventilation, the second is circulation, and the third is metabolism. So if we're able to measure the amount of carbon dioxide that comes out at the end of your breath, that is going to help us to ensure that ventilation, air moving in and out, is actually occurring. Also, there's not going to be any carbon dioxide, which is what we're measuring in capnography, coming out in ventilation if circulation and metabolism are not happening. Since we all know that carbon dioxide is a waste product that is built up from metabolism, we're not going to get it in the process of ventilation if circulation and metabolism aren't also occurring. So capnography can give us some really good information about all three of those pieces of physiological processes. All right. Now, finally, just kind of touching base on the science behind how capnography works. For those of you who want a little bit more in-depth information, it uses infrared wavelengths that are absorbed by carbon dioxide at a measurable rate. So as those infrared wavelengths are absorbed at a measurable rate, the device can determine how much carbon dioxide is present. All right. So moving on, that was our introduction of what capnography is. I'll have a few moments here where we'll pause and we'll look at a couple of different things. But if you have any questions at any point, feel free to chime in. I'm always glad to have this be more of an open-based discussion, so don't hesitate to do that. But moving on from the intro, now we're talking about some key terms. You've got those, the ones that you see there on the screen. I'm going to be focusing on 5 of them specifically: capnometry, capnography, capnograph, capnogram, and end tidal CO2. So we'll go through those a little bit one at a time and just kind of give you a brief introduction. So capnometry, this is not a word that people use very often. Usually you just hear the word capnography, but capnometry is the measurement of expired carbon dioxide, which we've been talking about, as a partial pressure or as a percentage. And the key with capnometry is that it's numeric. So this one doesn't involve a waveform. It simply involves a number. So when you're looking at capnometry, you're looking at a measurement in the form of a number. Now, that's going to be a little bit different from the next one, which is capnography. Capnography is a graphic recording or display of that number that we just discussed over time. So capnography takes the number and turns it into a waveform that we're actually able to visually look at and interpret. The capnograph is the device that measures the expired carbon dioxide, and the capnogram is the actual waveform. So as you're looking on your monitor and you see a waveform, that's the actual capnogram. Finally, we have end tidal CO2. This is the actual measurement of the carbon dioxide at the end of expiration, so when you exhale at any given moment. So as you're reading your capnometry value on your screen, it's giving you a measurement of carbon dioxide at the end of exhalation. All right, so that was a real quick rundown. What we're going to do to kind of help reinforce it is I've got a handout that can be beneficial to you. It's available in your Moodle platform, but we've also got a quick little image of it here. This will allow you to look at a couple questions and try to match the proper definition. So I'll give you just a minute to do that, and you're welcome to pose any questions that you may have. All right, and I'm also gonna give us the opportunity to do a Kahoot. I love Kahoot. To me, it adds a little aspect of like Jeopardy to the class and gets me doing something more exciting. So you don't have to listen to me keep talking the whole time. So we're going to log in, and I'll give you instructions for that, and that will allow us to do a Kahoot game. All right. So now that we've done a little bit of review, had a little bit of fun, we'll get back in with a couple more definitions, and then we're going to finally do the skills. So the three different types of capnography that we want to look at are quantitative, which is basically just numerical capnometry, which all that means is when we do a quantitative capnography or a capnometry reading, we're simply getting a number. That's all we're getting. We're not getting a waveform. Qualitative would simply be the yes or no presence of carbon dioxide, and that is measured by a colorimetric device, which we'll discuss here in a minute. And then finally, we have a continuous waveform that allows us to monitor the carbon dioxide exhaled over time. So there's your capnometry. This image here shows a waveform and a number, but if we just had the number, you can see there in the picture, it says CO2 and it says 43 millimeters of mercury. That would be your quantitative capnography or capnometry. Now the waveform, I'll get to the waveform in just a minute. I apologize. Looks like I did these out of order. So we'll backtrack here. This is the qualitative capnography. And basically, this is an older style. It's a device that measures the yes or no presence of carbon dioxide by color change on this device when you ventilate the patient. Now, the waveform that we were talking about would be not necessarily a numeric value. Sometimes they show it, the numbers with it. Other times they just show the waveform. But you can see here, this has an ECG interpretation, a pulse ox pleth, and then at the bottom, you've got the waveform. All right. So we're going to do some step-by-step procedures. This is going to let you see how you would implement capnography. We've given you a basic intro of what it is and what it measures and told you that it's beneficial for assessment. There's a lot more we could learn about it, but that gives you just a real quick kind of behind-the-scenes look at what it is. Here we are going to show you how you'll implement it. So the first step would be if we were going to use the colorimetric device to measure qualitative yes or no presence of carbon dioxide. You would place the device between the endotracheal tube and the bag valve mask, ventilate the patient, observe for color change, and confirm placement by the color change. You're looking for the device to change to a color of yellow and not purple. I always was taught yellow is yay and purple is poo. So if you get that yellow color, you're in good shape. If you don't get that color, you get purple or you get no color change, you're going to have to question the accuracy of the placement of the airway, and you'll remove the tube if in doubt. Another way we can sample carbon dioxide is through a breathing patient, spontaneously breathing. We can place a special device in the form of a cannula that captures the carbon dioxide as the patient breathes. This is a real simple way to monitor a patient. Very similar to just putting on an oxygen cannula. And in fact, some of the capnography cannulas also are able to deliver oxygen. So you would simply apply the nasal cannula to the patient as you would any other cannula, and then you would connect the special sampling line to the monitor and ensure that the switch is toggled to turn on the sampling on the monitor. And then you will visualize the carbon dioxide number reading in digital waveform. And finally, we have non-breathing intubated patient where we're going to use continuous waveform capnography rather than qualitative capnography. And in this instance, we are putting an inline sampling device onto the tube. So you will attach that inline sampling device between the tube and the ventilation device, usually a bag valve mask. You will ventilate the patient, make sure that the toggle switch is turned on your monitor to sample, and make sure that the sampling device is connected to the monitor. And then you will visualize as you ventilate and ensure that there is a digital reading and a waveform if appropriate. So again, that's just a real quick discussion of it. I hope that at least gives you a quick picture. Any questions, feel free to chime in. You can also use the chat at the bottom. I'll be available for a few more minutes if you would like to discuss anything. And if you want to look at any further resources, I drew my information from my paramedic care textbook as well as a GEMS article that you can see the link for there. That's all I have for you today. And I hope you found it informative, and we'll see you next time.